Welcome into Payoff Pitch, Action Network's baseball betting podcast, getting set for the 2023 MLB season. You're tuned into your NL Central Division preview. Brendan Glasheen, BJ Cunningham, Charlie DiSturco, your trio for this particular episode. You can find the rest of our division previews on the Payoff Pitch podcast. They're coming at you the week of March 6th, wherever you get your podcasts. So we have all 6 divisions. Extensive previews coming out. You can find our Payoff Pitch podcast account on the Action Network app by simply searching Payoff Pitch podcast. More to come as far as what our plans are for the regular season once it starts in a couple weeks. And again, I strongly encourage, if you haven't done so already, our first episode of the pod for the 2023 season is available. Off-season betting update, Zerillo, Whitchurch, available now, as well as the previews. But it's a good jumping off episode to kind of sink your teeth into the season, rule changes, etc. Okay, gents, NL Central. The St. Louis Cardinals are the favorite to win this division. They overachieved last year, right? They were projected 84.5 wins. They won 93 games. BetMGM, our presenting sponsor, has them at 89.5 wins right now. And they are minus 125 to come out of the Central in the National League. BJ, we'll start with you. Adam Wainwright's their opening day starter. They've got Jack Flaherty. They've got their pitching's not very good. It's just their starting rotation has a ton of question marks. Now, if it all goes well, Steven Matz is the other pitcher that we have to mention too, in terms of the injury guy that could be good if he stays healthy. Mm-hmm. Where are you at with the Cardinals? Should you bet the Cardinals how to win the division, or wait?
No, I don't think there's really much value in them to win the division. I mean, Fangraphs has them at around 56%, and they're sitting at minus 115. So, I mean, I guess you could say there's a couple percent of value there. But, like, I have major question marks with the starting rotation. So, if Adam Wainwright, who's now 42 years old, not the fact that he's 42 years old, he's just going to go up there and keep throwing curveball after curveball. I mean, last season he was a 4.5 xERA pitcher. His K per 9 rate was under 7 for the first time in his career. Like, yeah, you're going to regress when you get to 42 years old, even though you're just only throwing curveballs. Then you look at Miles Mikolas, who drastically overperformed last season. He had an xERA around 4. Jordan Montgomery, I view him as like the most perfectly average Major League Baseball pitcher. He's good, but also he's not elite. So yeah, he's a perfectly fine number 3 starter. And Jack Flaherty, he came on really strong when he was, very young. He was a 3.3 xERA pitcher, but he hasn't pitched a full season in three seasons now. And if you look through all of his numbers, it's been pretty bad, actually. Like 2020, he had an xERA of 5. 2021, it's 4.8. And then last year, he only pitched 36 innings and his xERA is 4.9. So that trend is showing me that, he's projected to be their number 4 starter, and he probably should be number 4, considering how badly he's pitched over the last 3 seasons. So you take all of that in and you're like, okay, this starting rotation is not going to be good. So now this offense is going to have to make up for that, or the bullpen's going to have to be really good and really deep to make up for the starting pitching. Hazley and Gallegos are 2 top 30 relievers. They're very, very good. But if you look beyond that, I mean, they don't have a starting reliever that's power ranked inside the top 50 on Fangraphs. Palante is going to be number 3. We've seen what he's like as a starter. He drastically overperformed. Jordan Hicks can throw 106 miles an hour, but he can't control anything. So now you're looking at a situation where you don't have a deep bullpen. You don't have a great starting rotation. So now you got to be this elite offense that can make up for that type of production. Goldschmidt and Arenado are 2 top 10 hitters in Major League Baseball. They are awesome. But beyond that, I mean, who's the 3rd best hitter in this lineup? Is it Tommy Edman? Because he was only a 310 weighted on base average hitter last season. Obviously, they signed Wilson Contreras, who's on a complete heel turn, which is hilarious to see. But even his offensive numbers, he was a 350 weighted on base average. So it's not like he was a completely elite hitter who's going to suddenly turn this lineup over. So I have major question marks with the Cardinals, where they're in a weak division. So yeah, they're probably the deserving favorite because they have the best lineup. And a lot of the other teams in this division, their lineups and starting rotations have a lot of question marks. But yeah, I'm looking forward to betting against the Cardinals on a day-to-day basis, especially these starting pitchers who are going to be very overvalued. But in terms of their division, no, I don't see any value on betting the Cardinals to win this division or really to bet their win total at all. I mean, their composite win total, I think, is sitting around 87.5, 88, somewhere in there. So there's really no value in taking any preseason futures on the Cardinals. I'm just really looking forward to betting against them on a day-to-day basis.
To read from Sean Zerillo, Charlie, we've lost the this is just Zerillo. We've lost the Cardinals win total unders the past 2 seasons and we are now betting on them to win the division. That's never fun.
I just don't know where, I going against Sean too on this one where he's betting them to win the division. I agree with BJ. There's so many question marks within this team. Like Flaherty's not the same pitcher he was. He had like a near 5 xERA last year. His barrel rates are up, or he showed up his barrel rates, but his walks went up. Jordan Montgomery, I like him, very solid in St. Louis, but he's not anything special. And Adam Wainwright is the biggest luck box that's ever been. A 270 expected batting average, doesn't generate whiffs. I'm going to be betting first 5 team total overs against him probably every single start for the rest of the entire season. I agree with BJ. I'm going to be fading this rotation and this team a lot throughout the season. I call them the Voodoo Cardinals because somehow they always ended up winning, whether it was their offense or not. But this rotation's not good. We saw the bullpen completely break down against the Phillies in the playoffs because they're so top heavy that if one pitcher goes wrong or one pitcher gets injured, they're completely lost. The offense is good. I think they're a little bit better than what BJ's making them out to be, especially if Jordan Walker makes the opening day roster, which I don't know if it will. Marmol seems pretty hesitant on saying that he will and maybe start in the minors, but I'll be looking to play him to win Rookie of the Year when he does get called up. That's the only positive thing I'll say about this Arizona Cardinals team. He had a 19 home runs and 22 stolen bases and a 300 average in 119 games last year. So Walker as a 2020 guy, if he gets called up in that April, May, I would bet him down to probably 750. I think that he's going to get the volume of at-bats and he's going to really star and grow in a role in this offense that's, so heavily in the middle with Goldschmidt, Arenado, Contreras. He's going to get pitched to, and I think he's going to thrive, and he's got that 2020 speed and power that I think he's pretty undervalued here if he's given, if he's called up in this April to May rate. But yeah, I'm fading the Cardinals heavy.
Well, why? I'm just looking at odds here for home run leaders, RBI leaders. Is it just me, or does it feel like the market's low on Goldschmidt to have a big year like he had last year?
It is a tad, but he's also getting up there. He's 32, and generally your production goes down from a year in, year out basis. And
32, 32 is your prime. That's a prime year as a hitter.
Yeah, we'll see. But his composite projection is around 29, 29.9, around 30, somewhere in there. So he's probably in that 14 to 15 range. And essentially what you're asking to do is just completely repeat the production that he had last season and maybe even overperform to lead the major league in home runs. So I think his odds for there are kind of fair. But yeah, no, he generally is one of the more underrated hitters in Major League Baseball.
Okay.
You're also backing on him to stay healthy, which he has proven the ability to, but you always have to take into account health considerations. If he misses a couple weeks, all of a sudden that 30 could get wishy-washy. It's just one of those things that, it's probably around that right mark. Like if he stays a full healthy and plays 150, 160 games, he'll probably go over, but it's probably around that right number.
Yeah, he's plus 1,800 to lead baseball in hits. So that shows some respect for Goldschmidt. Just curious. He was a guy all year. We talked about MVP discussion, right? Last year. All right, let's go to the Brewers. There's a lot of Cardinals talk to open up this particular episode. Brewers priced at plus 160 on BetMGM to win the division. Win total set at 85.5. They won 86 games last year. They were the projected division winner last season, BJ, at 90.5 wins. I think you've got based on your lack of confidence in the Cardinals, you do like this Brewers team to make a run down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, you can find them at plus money to make the playoffs, which I think is fantastic value for this Brewers team. I mean, listen, the lineup is going to be perfectly average. I think you have 3 top 100 hitters in Yelich, Tellez, and Adames. Tellez is somebody I actually really like to lead the Major League Baseball in home runs. He's 55-1 to do so. He had 35 last year. His composite projection is 30 on Fangraphs. And that's only projected for 138 games, which he played 153 last year. He's, a huge left-handed bat. Milwaukee's park factor is 8th best in Major League Baseball for left-handed hitters. He's top 2% in Major League Baseball in max exit velocity. And he's 14th in barrels per plate appearance percentage. So he's a very, very good power hitter, and he's, if you look at the odds board, he's projected for the 15th to lead MLB in home runs, but he's 25th on the odds board. So I love his value, but him along with Yelich and Dames gives the Brewers a decent lineup. But really what I love about this Milwaukee team is their starting rotation, which is still really, really good. I mean, Corbin Burns and Woodruff are 2 top 20 pitchers in Major League Baseball. Even you look at Peralta. I mean, last 2 seasons, he's been under a 2.7 xERA. Like, he has nasty stuff. He was better than both Burns and Woodruff last season. Eric Lauer has proved himself to be a perfectly average and capable starting pitcher. And Wade Miley, well, it's your 5th starting pitcher, so maybe you're not getting much him. But the bullpen is still quite good. I mean, Devin Williams is an unbelievable closer. He's a top 5 closer in Major League Baseball. They added Matt Bush. Hobie Milner is still a top 100 reliever. So you're getting a Milwaukee team that was top 5 last season in xFIP, top 7 in strikeout to walk ratio. I think this is still a really good team playing in a weak division. They're 57.4% to make the playoffs on Fangraphs. So at plus 110, I think there's tremendous value. Really what you're going to need, though, is you're going to need the NL East to eat itself alive. One of those NL East teams, one of the 3 NL East teams. And then obviously you assume the Dodgers and the Padres are going to make the playoffs. So they either have to beat the Cardinals to obviously win this division. But again, the NL East is very stacked with the Marlins getting better. So I think this is a good chance to pack the Brewers to make the playoffs. I think there's some tremendous value in there on them.
Milwaukee at plus 110 to make the playoffs, and that is one of BJ's favorite bets in this division. Charlie, where do you sit with the Brewers? There's more confidence in their pitching than the Cardinals, but offensively, they're a middler.
Right. The offense, there's a lot to be had, and you're relying on some of these guys like Yelich to kind of find his groove again, which it's hard. But the Brewers, they were busy this offseason. They added to their offense, which was their biggest weak point last year. William Contreras, Brian Anderson, Jesse Winker, Tyler Naquin, all coming over to Milwaukee. You'd expect a better season out of Winker after last season. And like BJ said, the left-handed hitting is also a positive in Milwaukee. And I agree with BJ. Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff are Cy Young caliber pitchers. Freddie Peralta, he underperformed by a ton, almost a whole run expected ERA compared to his actual ERA less. I love Peralta. This is a scary rotation. I think that I'm not really taking a side or a future here. I do lean that the Brewers win the NL Central, mostly because I think there's so many more question marks when it comes to St. Louis and their season outlook and how their rotation is going to hold up. I have questions about the Brewers offense, but I think they're a team that maybe when we talk again around that All-Star break or mid-season, they'll probably be within a couple games or maybe a couple games ahead of St. Louis. And maybe that's when you take a stab at them to make the playoffs or win the division, because, Burns and Woodruff are expiring contracts at the end of not this season, next. So if they're down by a lot, do they sell? And then that really just ruins a lot versus the second half comeback. Who knows? I know our colleague Sean Zerillo seems pretty adamant that one of them will be moved, if not both. I'm more of the optimistic side that the Brewers are going to be competitive and buyers at the deadline, or at least, stay put and keep course, because I think the Cardinals are going to underperform. So I agree with BJ. I think that if you're going to attack it, I might go the NL Central route as opposed to the making the playoffs. I'm a bit hesitant, and the NL East is going to probably cannibalize itself, but four of those teams I think could win 80 games, 85 games. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm optimistic on the Brewers.
How about the Chicago Cubs? This could be a fun team. They're active in the offseason. Swanson, Bellinger, Suzuki in the lineup as well. Now, they might be a couple years away because of the Cardinals and the Brewers, and they're just consistently better, and the Cubs are in still a rebuilding phase. But looking at their win total, 77.5 at BetMGM for this coming season. Last year, they were projected just shy of that, 75.5. They won 74 games. They, if I remember correctly, they traded a lot of their bullpen arms away, right? Because they were out of contention. So they, I don't forget, because I was at Wrigley last summer for a few games, and I'm like, wait a minute, you gotta handicap this team a little bit differently because their bullpen's not as good. So beware of getting your heart broken late in the game. And that's what happened on that very nice summer night, my first time to Wrigley Field. Anywho, Cubs at plus 600 to win the NL Central. We'll start with the lineup. You guys have any interest in this team? Maybe considering some win, not win. Maybe, well, we're talking futures, of course, the whole season. But is this a team, Charlie, when you look at them during the season, do you see some upside and some overs on the Cubs? Are you bought into what they did with their lineup in the offseason?
I think that they're probably more of a first five play when it comes to, obviously you mentioned the bullpen and the lack of depth in the bullpen and how bad it might be. Their starting rotation, they have young arms with a lot of upside. Keegan Thompson, Justin Steele, Adrian Sampson, all pitchers that,
right.
Last year I was pretty much a fan of grabbing them in that mid 100 plus money territory. I listen, their offense, I think that it's good. It's not great. It's not horrible. It's a little bit underwhelming. Their signings I wasn't in love with. I don't love Bellinger. I don't love Hosmer. Mancini's solid. Barnhart solid. Swanson's played his best season last year. Will he be able to do that again? I don't know. He wasn't able to in the beginning few seasons in Atlanta. And then in that stacked offense, you're going to get thrown to. And he had a great season. But I'm very concerned with this team just from especially early on in the point, because Seiya Suzuki is hurt and he's likely to miss opening day. He withdrew from the World Baseball Classic. So, this could have been a sleeper play to maybe win the Central or at least make the playoffs. If Suzuki's in the lineup, he's fully healthy. And I knew that entering opening day, but I'm just concerned about the bullpen, the back end of the rotation. You're putting a lot of faith in these offseason signings that I'm not super high on, but I do think that this team's a first five team throughout the season. I think that they're going to be a live underdog at times. And given how bad I think the Cardinals are going to be and the Brewers offense that probably will be a bit underwhelming, and then the Pirates and the Reds are a whole nother story, the Cubs are going to have some value to bet game to game throughout the season.
BJ, what's your feeling on the Cubs?
I think with this lineup, I think the perfect statement on it is this lineup would be unbelievable in 2020 or 2021.
Yeah, it's true. It's a lot of names.
Now it's you look at Bellinger, what he's done the last two seasons. I mean, he's been under 280 x-weighted on base average. Like, he has completely fallen off from where he was almost an MVP candidate around 2020 and 2019. Right. Hosmer is obviously on the back end of his career. He's getting up there in age 34. Mancini fell off a little bit from what he did in 2019 and 2021. Dansby Swanson is obviously very good, but the rotation, I mean, you look at it, I see just five perfectly average starting pitchers. Drew Smyly is, if he's going to be in there the whole time, I'm not sure that's going to go pretty well. But Justin Steele, Adrian Sampson, Tayon, Stroman, they're all just perfectly average. There's nothing really exciting about them. There's nothing I really hate that much about them. The bullpen, I think, is going to be better than it was in that back end of last season. They got Hughes, Fulmer, and Boxberger, who are all top 100 relievers. After that, it gets a little bit dicey. Alizé and Wick are perfectly capable relievers, but the depth there is going to be a concern for the Cubs. But from a projection standpoint, they're 6-1 to win this division. Fangraphs has them at 4%, so there's no value there to bet them win the division. Their composite win total is sitting at 76.1, so there's no value really in taking an under or anything like that. But I would love to watch this team in 2020 or 2021. But outside of that, they're just a team that's with a bunch of guys that are kind of at the back ends or past what their prime was.
Fangraphs has them at 75 wins. Pacoda 75.7. Keegan Thompson's going to start the year in the rotation, right? Or is he hurt? He's good to go, right? I'm just looking at their projected rotation. I'm not sure why I'm not seeing his name.
Check.
I think it just depends on their veteran, how their veteran arms go. He did make his spring training debut a couple days ago, so you would be assuming that
we forget about Kyle Hendricks too.
Right. You would assume that he makes his either starts out in the bullpen or makes his way into that starting rotation. I mean, Drew Smyly's not lasting in that rotation.
Yeah, put Thompson in. Thompson was good at the end of last year. Remember, there was some spots, first five spots. I think Charlie's spot on with the first five angle on this team.
Right. You're going to get good plus money. Even if you take like the first 5 plus a half a run, you'll probably get it like minus 110. And these arms they're not that, but those young arms, I would say, are not that bad. I wouldn't recommend you betting a Kyle Hendricks or a Drew Smiley Cubs first 5.
But BJ's spot on. Like there's a reason why Dansby Swanson has been a journeyman here the last couple of years. There's a reason
Cody Bellinger wasn't re-signed by the Dodgers.
Correct. Right. Trey Mancini on the move. There's a reason.
Hosmer.
Yeah. You crunch the numbers. These front offices on those respective teams are like, yeah, we're good. But the Cubs, come on over to Wrigley. Get some masses in the seats.
They had money to blow.
Sell some tickets.
Truly. Like maybe because we're all in such a fog the last couple of years here, the way time has moved so quickly with how the world has been burning, maybe the Cubs look at it like, hey, maybe people will think it's still like 2020 or 2021 in terms of these names that we're bringing in.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's very BJ, to be fair, it's very
fans.
Red Sox-esque if you're being
fair. It is. It definitely is.
It's like 2013 Red Sox.
If you're going to sell tickets, like, Cody Bellinger, Dansby Swanson, those are exciting guys rather than some guy coming up from AAA that people have never heard of. So it's good marketing.
Big drop here down the list to the Pirates and the Reds. We'll start with the Pirates. We might have some props involved with the Reds. I've been hearing possibly later on. Pirates plus 6,000 at BetMGM to win the division. Win total sit at 67.5. Their projection last year was 64.5, and they fell short of that. 62 wins. Pirates were kind of fun when they beat the Dodgers last year. That's what I remember about the Pirates.
Greatest 3-day stretch of the Major League.
Remember that? That was great. Thanks, Zerillo. Thanks you too, BJ. I always mention Zerillo, but when Zerillo's always on the
Zerillo is the one who deserves the credit. It's okay.
Yeah, Zerillo and the
I usually am just coming in and piggybacking off him, so that's okay.
Yeah, that's right. They swept the freaking Dodgers, and
it's the season.
Those plus money edges you can get with really bad teams. The Pirates just had the Dodgers number.
They're going to be it again this year.
But in the interest of the theme of this podcast, we're talking a division preview, which means this is a bigger picture outlook. Are the Pirates going to be putrid again, Cunningham, BJ?
I don't think so. Like in terms of what it depends what you define putrid, like as one of like the 2 or 3 worst teams in baseball, or one of like the fifth worst team in baseball. I actually do like their over 67.5 wins. I think they're going to be, their lineup's actually going to be kind of good. Obviously, Orneal Cruz is, one of the most exciting young players in baseball. Brian Hayes is a very, very capable hitter. They brought in, some veteran help to help stabilize their lineup. Andrew McCutchen is coming back for his song in Pittsburgh. Carlos Santana obviously hasn't been productive, but these are perfectly average Major League Baseball players that can give you at least somewhat of production at the plate. And one of the more underrated hitters they have in their lineup is Brian Reynolds. He dropped off a little bit in 2022, but in 2021 he was a 27 homer, 90 RBI, 162 hits. For one of the worst teams in baseball, 386 x-weighted on base average. So they obviously traded for G-Man Choi, who's a very solid hitter in the lineup. Connor Joe is productive for Colorado. This is a halfway decent lineup. And they also have Andy Rodriguez, who is an unbelievable prospect catcher coming up hopefully midway through the season. He's a top 20 prospect in Major League Baseball. Go look at his numbers of what he's been doing in double and triple. He's like a 450 or 500 weighted on base average guy. It's crazy the numbers that he's putting up. Starting rotation is a bit of a question. Mitch Keller is going to probably be their opening day ace. One of my I actually played baseball with his brother, and I know Mitch personally. One of Cedar Rapids' own, Mitch Keller. But he had 2 really bad seasons to begin his Major League Baseball career, but he improved quite a bit last season. So he went from being very, very bad to somewhere around average to below average. JT Brubaker is perfectly average to below average. Rosny Contreras has shown flashes of being an above average starter in Major League Baseball. So back end's bad though. I mean, I can't really say much about it. Rich Hill and Vince Velasquez it's going to be bad. I don't really know what else to say about that. They do have a top line reliever in Bednar, who's a good closer. Unfortunately, how these things work is he'll probably get dealt at the deadline. The Pirates are out of it, which is unfortunate. But we're only asking them to win 68 games, Brendan. We're not asking them to go above 500 or make the playoffs. We're just asking them to win 68 wins. And if you look at the composite projections through all the projection sites, the Pirates are about 70 wins. So you're getting a few wins of value here. I like the Pirates over 67.5 wins. And if they were 100-1 to win this division, I would take that in an instant. But they're only 60-1.
Sean Zerillo said, Charlie, that the Pirates actually overachieved by 4 wins last year, and they fell short of their win total, as I mentioned off the top. But yeah, I mean,
I'm not that interested in backing their over. I mean, it seems like everyone and their mom is on the over, right? Like it's one of the most popular bet overs in baseball, but I think BJ's right. Mitch Keller, JT Brubaker, Contreras, they're going to be fun arms to back throughout the year. They're more of a first 5 team for me, like the Cubs. Just with a lot of these bad teams, you really want to just find the right spots to get them and back them, especially, like against the Dodgers last season, we did that. I'm worried about their season-long total because, like BJ mentioned, Bednar might get traded. Brian Reynolds has been in trade discussions for like the last season. So like, there's a chance that he gets moved too. And if Brian Reynolds gets moved and Bender gets moved, they not only lose their best back end of the bullpen arm, but they lose their best hitter. And then you're relying on a lot of boomer bust players. I mean, O'Neal Cruz is probably going to be great. Brian Hayes is going to be solid, but this is a bottom feeder team. And I'm more high on the Cincinnati Reds. So I'm not looking to play this over. It's probably right in line with the projections, maybe a little bit too high. I'm just not that high on this team. And Rich Hill, thank you for joining the Pirates, because I'm going to be betting your opponent's first 5 team total over just about every single start.
wow.
Trivia question. How old is Rich Hill now?
37.
No,
37.
43.
Oh no, he's in his 40s. You're right. 43.
43-year-old Rich Hill.
Still talk about knowledge right there. That was off the rip.
Yeah, we talk about how great Tom Brady is playing quarterback until 45. How about Rich Hill? Still pitching at age 43.
What is does Pittsburgh think, hey, let's keep this guy and then maybe we move him at the deadline and get something for him? Is that the whole idea?
Yeah, they don't extend people. Like their owner is historically very good.
What are you going to get for Rich Hill anyway?
Hey,
they're trying to build something like what the Rays do, right? Because the Rays don't have a big payroll. They typically rely on, like you said, selling guys at the deadline, getting prospects, building those prospects up until you can get a bunch of value for them. So that's just what happens in Major League Baseball. Like the bigger market teams generally take the best players from these smaller teams. Just how it is.
Maybe you sell them to the Red Sox. The Red Sox are in the pennant because they want to get back to that 2015
exactly.
voodoo.
Oh, Brendan, we had Bednar. Woo!
No, I'm saying Rich Hill.
Or Rich Hill. Bring him back. Yeah.
Yeah, bring him back. He was born in Boston. Okay. So BJ likes the Pirates win total over. We move on to the Reds. If many of you recall, this team was absolutely awful. They were 3-22 through the first 25 games of the season. It got to a point where I think folks...
Either way, though.
Say it again.
Those games could have gone either way. You never know.
Yeah, a lot of bad luck.
I don't know. You start to figure it out that they're not very good. Now, they turned a bit of a corner afterwards. They were not playing 3 out of every 25 baseball. Charlie DeSturco is interested, though, in this team's win total over. It's at 65.5 wins at BetMGM. Last year, they only won 62. When you consider 3-25, 62 is not all that bad. They were projected to win 73.5. Why do you have interest in the Reds, Charlie?
Listen, I'm going to put my Cincinnati Reds hat on right now. We're going with the Reds win total over. Listen, they have 3 very strong young arms: Lodolo, Green, Ashcraft. That's a great top 3, and they have a lot of upside. The back end of the rotation might be a little bit of an issue, but we're not, like BJ said about the Pirates, we're not asking the Reds to win 70, 80 games. We're just asking them to win, that the 66 mark. You have a great closer in Diaz, brother of Edwin Diaz, a lot of young pieces: Tyler Stevenson, Johnny India, Nick Senzel, a couple vets with Joey Votto, Will Myers they brought in. This is feasible for this team. They're young, they're talented. I don't think that this Central division is good. I mentioned how my questions are about the Cardinals and their pitching. My concerns about the Brewers and their offense, the Cubs and their offense, and Suzuki's going to miss the start of the season. So maybe the Reds grab a quick 3 from them. The Pirates, I don't think are going to be that good as well. And I'm not too high on their pitching altogether. I think that this is just way too low of a number for the Reds. I think it should be a couple wins higher. I'm going to buy low on them, especially after last season, how bad they were to start. They were decent at the end. I think that they're a decent team, right? We're not asking them to make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I'm not telling you to put money down on them to win the NL Central, but I think that this number is too low. And another angle that I'm attacking right here, Hunter Green, Cy Young. I got him at 100-1. There's 80s out there right now. Listen, it's not a sure thing, but he's going to take a bulk of the load of innings atop the Reds rotation. He had a slow start when he first came up, but if you look at how he finished, he was dominant. Final 5 starts of the year, 29 innings, 45 strikeouts, a 0.62 ERA. He has the stuff to be a dominant ace in baseball. We knew that when he came out of high school, when he entered the MLB draft. We knew how good he was going to be. Showed up on his control, less walk rate as the season progressed. His biggest issue is barrel rate with his fastball, but he was in the top 30% of expected batting average. And from a stuff plus perspective, when you're looking at advanced metrics, he's up there with the top arms of the league. Corbin Burns, Spencer Strider. I like Strider also to potentially win the Cy Young if you're going to take multiple stocks in that. But Hunter Green, I mean, this number is just way too far. If you compare it to other numbers in the market, it's down to 40, 50-1. There's 80s out there. I got it at 100. Green, if all things click, maybe he doesn't win it this year, but he's a Cy Young arm, and at 100-1 and 80-1, whatever it is disgraceful for him.
Yeah, looking at FanGraphs, they're projecting him close to a 200 strikeout season, and doesn't walk many. When you look at the strikeout to walk ratio,
his strikeout season total I think is like 190, 191. I mean, if he stays healthy, he's going to go over that number, assuming that he can pitch 6-7 innings to start. I mean, this guy has some of the best stuff in baseball.
BJ, you was high on the Reds as Charlie before we wrap up this episode?
No. I have major question marks about their bullpen. Like, yeah, Diaz is good. He's fine. But you look beyond that, it is a dumpster fire of guys who you're going to be relying on in those middle innings. Lucas Sims, Javier San Martin, Buck Farmer, Daniel Norris. What are we, the Tigers rotation from 2016? Ian Gabalt, Fernando Cruz. Like, these are all sub 200 relievers in Major League Baseball. And their lineup, quite frankly, is, let me just read through their lineup. Fraley, India, Votto, Stevenson, Myers, Friedel, Spencer Steer, Kevin Newman, Nick Senzel. That does not put the fear of God into you if you are a starting pitcher. So, yeah, they got a couple of fun arms. The offense is going to be near the bottom as, a bottom 5, bottom 6 offense. Their bullpen was, quite frankly, outside of the Rockies, the worst bullpen in Major League Baseball, and they're going to be right there again. So, Hunter Green is fun. Like, he's obviously got incredible stuff, but like, that's it with this, Reds team. If you look at composite projection, they're right around 66. So this is an easy pass. They'll be a fun underdog bet, but at like at plus 300. But other than that, I have no interest in taking anything with their futures preseason.
Okay. That's a good way to end it. Good luck to you, Charlie. Keep that hat on as long as you'd like. That's going to do it for our NL Central betting preview here on Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast presented by BetMGM. For Charlie DiSturco, BJ Cunningham, Brendan Glasheen. You can find all of our other previews over on the Payoff Pitch podcast, wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for listening, and hope to talk to you all again real soon.